Welcome to the Leo Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Leary Halperin Segal. Join me as I explore the insights, techniques, and tools that empower insurance agents to grow their business, enhance their marketing, and close more deals. Each episode, we bring expert advice, industry trends, and actionable tips to help you thrive. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Leo Insurance Podcast. Today's episode is all about building a winning sales process for 2025, a super relevant topic, right? I'm Leary Halperin Segal, the CEO and founder of Leo, the #1 AI sales platform for insurance agents. We help agents to grow their businesses and connect with the right prospect. And this podcast was invented because we speak with agents all day long and we learned about their processes and their techniques, and we want to share those insights also with you guys. So thank you for joining. I'm joined by Scott, our SVP, who's mentor for a lot of our agents. So Scott, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Larry, you bet. So, and Kelly, nice to see you today. So, yes, like Kelly, I'm sure she's been to hundreds of agencies, if not maybe thousands. I've been on site to over 800 agencies. My team last year did about 1,500 meetings. And all these meetings are centered around how do we help the producer build their book of business? How do we match their needs, their goals up to Leo? And then we craft up a plan that enhances that approach using Leo. And we also work a lot with scratch producers, validating producers as quickly as possible. So I look forward to our podcast today.
Yes, and we are here with our special guest, Kaylee Donohue-Piro. I hope I said it correctly.
You did great. You did great.
Thank you for that. She's the founder and president of Agency Performance Partners, and she's a powerhouse in helping insurance agencies grow. She's the BFF of the agency owner. So, Kaylee, please introduce yourself.
Sure. It's great to see everybody, meet everybody. So yeah, I am Kaylee Donohue-Piro and I'm in little teeny tiny Rhode Island. Although right now I'm in the greater Pittsburgh area at an agency. And our goal is to help agencies grow, hit their potential. And I think that there's so many things from the sales side where we see agents not hitting their potential. We like to talk a lot that agents have a quoting process, not always a sales process. And that's why we're so excited to refer a lot of our clients to you guys, because I think that, that prospecting piece is something that isn't taught enough and isn't understood enough. So I'm excited to be here today to share some of our thoughts on it.
Perfect. Thank you. And we are happy to have you here. Scott, maybe you can start and maybe you can describe how agents can find prospect in Leo. I know it's 5 a.m. for you right now, but please, we believe in you that you will.
That's why we have coffee, right, Kelly? So there we go. You know what's interesting, Larry, is when I looked over the market for prospecting methodologies, specifically in insurance, it's hard to really find anything about prospecting methodologies. Now, we get into it. Kelly talked about quoting and building their book and cross-selling, a lot of things that she helps agency do. But as far as that top of funnel, it's really unique that I don't see a lot of information about that. So what Leo does is we help you data mine over 32 million businesses, but we don't just bring you the workers' comp X dates. That's probably 80% of the questions I get. Do you supply workers' comp X date? We use data as a story. So we not only look at the work comp X date, we'll look at the benefit form, the 5500, to identify that key prospect. And 90% of the brokers that I work with are unfamiliar with that form. And it's a great piece of data to not only look at the key prospects, who to reach out to at the agency. We also show up to a 10-year profile are the participants in those different programs at the prospect. So you can not only see, are they growing, are they decreasing? You get information on their bond also. So there's a lot of great information. And then using that data as a story. And then lastly, we do data mine the 990 database for directors and officers and compensation. And the DOT site. And I've had guys say, hey, listen, Scott, I don't write DOT information. But we manage risk, right, Kelly? We manage risk. Well, why not take a look at some of those files that we bring down instantaneously and look at any sort of issues that they might have associated with risk? And what you're doing is you're expanding that conversation when you reach out to that new prospect, maybe you are just after the workers' comp, business, but you have a fuller conversation showing your expertise as a broker. And that's really, I think, the key benefits with Leo is using that data as a story to show not only your expertise, but to either win that business over the incumbent or show that you're better than any of the other agents that are reaching out and talking to this potential prospect. So I think that's our key features and functionalities that we offer to the broker.
Yeah. One of the most popular methodologies that we also see is that they are using Leo in order to create a list and filter by X dates so they know when to send those email campaigns. Kaylee, can you maybe share some other techniques of what agencies are doing with prospects that they are finding, that they're getting, that they're buying?
I believe strongly that agencies need 5 lead sources because sometimes one works or sometimes one doesn't. And so, traditionally agents always went out in the community and networked and got really, got their faces out there. And I would say those times have changed, right? So what do I mean by that? People have kids and, those evening events are a little less streamlined, but I still tell people to do them, right? Like just because maybe they're a little less popular today, being in your community, whatever that looks like, is important. If you're in the niches, being in the networks and the groups that are out there is super critical. You and I only do one thing, right? We target insurance agents. So we're in all the groups and going to conventions and showing our faces. I think another thing that is really, really successful for a lot of agencies are the niches. There's riches to niches. And I like to say that. And you can go so deep and spread network, and people love the idea of community. Like you understand restaurants or you understand these different areas. You speak their language versus we speak insurance, they speak whatever they do, manufacturing. Sometimes there's, I like to say, a translation gap. So we do love niches. Another thing I think that is also incredibly successful is working your certificate requester list, right? That data is in your management system. So your clients are doing business with other people. When you're doing the renewal, look at the top 3 and say, we should talk about this to make sure that their insurance and your insurance jive, that there's no coverage gaps. How can we get an introduction? So I think that when we're looking at it, to me, there's so many opportunities for leads. I think agents have to figure out the time to prospect, set that time aside. And then to Scott's point, like really dive deep. Okay, how am I going to approach the list in Leo? How am I going to approach these certificate requesters? But if you don't dictate the time, you could spend a lot of time with the fires coming across your desk. Like prospecting is something that you have to budget your time for.
Yeah, so we are all about niches in Leo. Scott, maybe you can speak more about it.
I like what you said about the certificates. That's a great idea, right? And the fact is they can go in and search on a specific prospect in Leo and then bring up that data. And that's what a lot of people do too, Kelly, is
like the reverse engineer, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I met this person at, a dinner event or this or that, and go and look them up and then build up that information database before they reach out. So yeah, great idea. And, it's interesting. Yeah, we talk about niches and you're right. I spoke to a big group in Florida here about 6 months ago. And I said, probably about 15% of the agents that I talk to, when I ask them, what's your market, they can answer me right away. Right. And I think that's what you're talking about. Let's focus. Let's have a clear focus on what we're going after, and we really help them pinpoint that. So if it's, like you said, restaurants or artisan contractors under 50 employees, and we build out these lists, whether it's an X-State list or a key contact list, and then using some tools. We have some partners, some products, whether it's Agency Zoom's pretty prolific out there, as is Insured Mind and some others, where they can actually take this data and funnel it right into Leo and automate that prospecting. Because to your point, they need to make time. And that's always the hardest aspect. And I'm sure you run into that too, don't you?
I find time's an excuse, right? Like, so you're a producing agent who doesn't have time to prospect. Well, what are you doing that's more important? Are you servicing your accounts because you don't trust your service team? Are you putting out fires? And I always tell people like this, people use the same excuse about like working out, right? Like, oh, I don't have time, but we've got time to watch The Bachelorette for 2 hours, right? Like your time is where you want to do it. I often hear when people say I don't have time means I don't want to. Like that's my brain translates it to I don't want to. And let's be honest, like prospecting, making quote unquote cold calls, like there's a lot of negative connotations around some of it, which is why I like what you guys do because, they're warmer. But when I work with agents, I say, if I gave you 50 lottery tickets and put them down on the desk, would you be excited to scratch them? Oh, in a heartbeat. I'd drop the penny right now and go to it. That's what cold calling is. You have 50 lottery tickets. Out of 50, something's going to hit, but your mentality and your mindset has to change. And if you're only taking what's call-in is usually smaller stuff, maybe not as qualified. Every now and again, you get a lucky lottery ticket on call-in business. But I think to consider yourself a sales professional and not have a time allowance for prospecting means you are a quoter. You are not a sales professional at that point in my mind.
You know what? To your point there, I asked somebody, I'm like, what's your title? And they said producer. And I asked them again, what's your title? And they said producer. I'm like, okay, let's help you. So, yeah.
Well, and then you're only producing people who call you. That means that there's all these great people that don't even know you exist. And your job has to be to put be in front of them.
Yeah.
And would you recommend an agency owner to take someone who will be in charge only on marketing and creating prospect and creating those email campaigns? Or you should tell him that you should do it, or your producers should do the marketing work?
I think it all depends on the type of agency, to be honest with you. Some agencies have that role, some do not. The marketing person typically doesn't have an insurance background. So I'm a big believer of the HubSpot words marketing, like sales-based marketing. So sales and marketing have to be a team. And so, the marketing person can make things look pretty, but they are going to need some help from the producers. The producers are not typically skilled at marketing campaigns and things like that, but there's a lot you can outsource today too. Like if you don't have a marketing person, there's a ton of companies out there that can assist you with that. And again, I think going to the niches, like I just think about how I've built my business, how you guys are building yours. Like I'm very in tune with what the pain points are in the industry. So I can now speak directly to very specific pain points inside of insurance, where if I was just a generic consulting firm, we would get looked over because, everybody's too busy or the hard market. Like I think when you're very niche focused, those campaigns pack a powerful punch because you're speaking directly to the issues that are associated in that market. Now, if you're more of a generalist, I think you also have to be very clear on your value proposition. And your value proposition, guys, is not, we've been in business for 80 years. We have 32 markets. That's about you. Your value proposition is what do you do for them? How do I solve your problems? What do I do that's different, that's boring, that's, unconventional to get somebody to leave and break up? Like that you're breaking up a relationship. How do you get someone to break up? Well, you have to be hotter and more attractive, right? And have a more compelling story. So I think the agencies have to do the work, whether that's with a marketing person or just sitting down and saying like, well, what do we do better? And I'm sure, Scott and Larry, you guys see this all the time. A lot of agencies are like, well, I don't really know. And I'm like, well, it kind of starts there. You don't have a sales pitch if you don't know why you're better than your competition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. We saw that one of the best processes for our producers is to start the investigation stage in Leo to find the prospect that they want, and then they can push it at the click of a button to agency Zoom, and they can start a marketing campaign there. Which tools would you recommend for an agency? Like 3 must tools, except
I probably take a different approach on this. I think it starts with your management system because I'm an integration lover. So when systems don't talk, both systems end up being wrong and inaccurate and cumbersome and people don't use them. Your management system's the mothership. Everything needs to work innocuously within that. Integration in insurance is, in my mind, still a little bit of a swear word, right? Like some do it better than others. Some promise integration, some are saying it's coming. But I always like to say, who cares? All that's an excuse. Like there's nothing that says that you can't pick up the darn phone. You don't need email campaigns to get out there and get after it. I think if you're listening to this as a producer and you're thinking, well, that's why I don't have marketing campaigns set up. We don't have a marketing person. I just want to say you're not hearing what we're all saying here today, right? Like you do have a phone. And you can call anybody. And if you wanted to, you could put together your own little Outlook email template and just hit send 20 times. So for us, I think the tech stack is very dependent. And I just want to give a little tip to agency principals that may be listening to this. Sometimes we don't need more technology. Like technology that's not being used is a paperweight. It's a waste. It's a waste of resources. So when you purchase tech, I was just at an agency yesterday that has a great CRM tool, but they told me they can't get their producers to use it. And I said, who signs their paycheck? Well, we do, but they won't use it. Well, that's a problem because it's not really their choice, because as being a modern sales professional, I need to put things somewhere. So it's like, how are they keeping themselves organized? How are they doing follow-ups? Well, they all have their own Excel spreadsheets. I go, so they're putting it somewhere, just not in your ecosystem. And we need to change that. So I don't put up a lot with people saying, I'm not going to do something. I look at it like, if you were needed to go put a chicken suit out and dance on the street corner to get leads and you're not hitting your sales goal, you'll do what's requested, which may be a little harsher. Scott's probably a little uncomfortable now, but but if they purchase your product and don't use it, I feel the same exact way. Like, you have a tool, no one's asking you to pay for it personally most of the time. So why not use it? And, when we go into agencies and there's lack of technology use, I get really frustrated because it's an expense and a time and a resource that could solve a lot of problems that's just not being picked up.
If I can add in there, I think one of the things you covered is, we'll talk about people cold calling, this and that. I think what's kind of unique, when I see it's all the above anymore, right? We thought this was going to replace this, It's D, all the above. So you've got to make calls, you've got to email, you've got to network. And what I like what we're doing is I show them how they can, within a prospect, they can go right into LinkedIn. Let's warm up to LinkedIn. Let's use LinkedIn a little bit. Then we have the email. And if you have an auto dialer, you can click on a number and dial right there. But I think having a comprehensive story before you reach out, I think helps every producer. Because if I don't know what I'm going to say, or I don't have a compelling reason to call you, then I think that slows down the desire or the interest in calling, because I'm just, why am I calling this person? So I think we not only give them a plan, but it's that multifaceted approach. I always say, people always ask me what works, and I say D, all the above. I remember one time our funnel was a little bit stuck, and I went to FedEx, it took a PowerPoint, went to FedEx, made that up into mailers, overnight mailers, and sent it out the top 20 accounts with your name on the front, Kelly, my name, and what's this about. And that worked immensely well because it's different now, right? Who gets FedEx overnight mailers? And so just kind of thinking out of the box a little bit of how I'm going to approach the market. What am I going to do different to differentiate myself?
I was just going to say, I also think, people have to have their expectations met, that it's very rare you're going to get a lottery ticket win on the first call. Like, you're going to have to build up some calls and some volume. And I think that, people, well, it didn't work. I called 30 people. It's like, well, did you find out the decision maker? Did you confirm things? Did you identify who they're working with? Like, I look at prospecting like football, like first downs. We need first downs. And if the first down might be like, I know that this is the right person to call, and they said, call me around my renewal. First down. Let's celebrate that. But I think every producer's looking for the Hail Mary pass. This person wants me to quote their insurance tomorrow. And I'm like, that's not reality. That's a unicorn.
I agree. It takes at least 10 touch points to get to speak with a prospect, especially when we talk about cold emails or cold calling. Okay, so we're getting to the end of this podcast, and we have 4 questions for you, Kaylee. So the first one is, what's one piece of advice you would give to new agents entering the industry?
You have to get into weekly planning. You need a game plan for your week, and it needs to be, in the beginning, it has to be heavily prospecting because you don't have a pipeline. So I look at it like, you need to set goals. How many calls am I going to make? How many exits do I want to get? Or if I have your product, I don't need to worry about that. How many appointments? How many first downs am I going to get? And if you study the math, sales is, in my mind, 90% activity. And so if you get the activity down, you will be successful. If you go around and you don't want to make calls because you don't know everything, call a niche or a list or something your agency doesn't even have a market for a week, and just get the wiggles out, get the words out. And then next week you will be stronger. But I say, be patient. And I also tell, producers, the week you want to quit because it's not working is the week you need to stay 2 more weeks. And then the world organizes and you get a win. But it's like darkest before it's light.
Okay, the second question. How do you stay motivated and inspired in your work?
I like to look at claim stories. I'm kind of weird like that. Like, how does insurance pay out? How do I help people? Right? Because it's kind of a grind, but you look at what's going on in California with the wildfires, you look at, crazy claim stories, like look up cyber attacks and look at EPLI and look at, workers' comp. And you realize like without insurance, the whole economy falls down. Right. And so I get inspired by looking at what insurance does, not the grind of the day to day, but like I really am helping people understand a complicated product and risk.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Before insurance, I was in the gifting industry. So it's such a fun industry,
Yeah.
creative stuff. But here you're talking with people that are really helping others to survive sometimes. So I agree. The third question, what was the most creative marketing idea you saw that an agency does?
Yeah. So back in the day, a little bit like what Scott was saying, we had an agency that would get squeeze toys, like the stress toys, and they actually did the Purple Cow, which is a book, and they'd send it out and say, keep this on your desk. I'm going to call you in 24 hours. And like no information, like it was just like this blank thing. And, lo and behold, people would pick up the phone because they're like, this was weird. What is this? And they're like, we just want to tell you how different we are about insurance, and they would have an initial conversation, but they got the phone calls to be returned and rang.
Nice. Okay, the last question. Can you share a book or resource that had a great impact on your career?
This one's so hard because I probably read a book a week. So this one is like one of those ones that's like, oh, like right now, like long term. I'm just going to go back to one that I reread probably every year, which is just How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a classic book, but it goes through just very specific principles. Give to get. You're not trying to win like the fight, like you're trying to get people on your team. And whether that's like internal in an agency, producers and account managers, or you and your sales manager or prospects, I just feel like that if everybody got that mentality down, sales would be much, much easier.
Wow, Kaylee, that was great. So interesting and inspiration. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for everyone that joined us and listened to our podcast. And of course, Scott, it's always great to be with you and to listen to your insights. So guys, if you want to try out Leo, you can go to our website, www.meetleo.com, and you can try out the 14 days trial, or you can just book a demo call with one of our advisors. Kaylee, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we do a blog every week. We have a YouTube channel. So I like to say, come to our website, agencyperformancepartners.com, and just hit the search button. Any challenge you have in your agency, we have over 1,000 blogs and videos out there. You will find an answer. So whether it's how to cross-sell, how to prospect, how to close a deal, how to find time in producer schedules, I challenge you, go to our website, search, and if we don't have it, you let me know and we'll write it and it'll be our next blog.
That's great.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.